everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you a speed up version of our Art Joy of Sharing live stream show that we have every Thursday morning at 8:30 Pacific and 10:30 Central. So today our topic was use what you have. So we were getting out things from around our studio that we maybe don't use very often, or maybe some upcycled things or some old techniques, things that we haven't been doing lately because it wasn't right on our desk. And so the first thing I did here was I used a the backing of a watercolor pad. I've torn off all the pieces of paper, and now I have this piece of backing, heavy cardboard, and I obviously thought I was making something out of it at some point because it was covered with heavy gesso, white heavy gesso on both sides. But I decided I wanted to do an old technique where you use black gesso. So I dug through all my stuff, found my black gesso, which I haven't used in a long time, and I covered one side of it with black gesso and gave it a good dry. Then I got out this very first thing that I ever purchased when I learned about mixed media years ago. This was the first mixed media thing that I purchased, and it's these Dilutions ink sprays that are manufactured by Ranger. And these ink sprays are intense. The pigment load on them is really high, and so they do have some unique properties that you can use that to your benefit, or you can be annoyed by it. It's just kind of one thing or another. And these things have literally been sitting in a shelf behind something else. Completely forgotten that these sprays even existed until I've been kind of cleaning and sorting my studio lately. I found them. And so I sprayed them on to the black gesso, which seems weird. Why would you be spraying these bright colors onto the black gesso? That doesn't make any sense, but it does. I promise. And I gave that a good dry until everything was completely dry. It kind of looks like an oil slick when you hold it up to the camera. You'll be able to see this kind of weird uh, colory situation going on. But what is fun to do with this then is to take a stencil, or you could also just do this with freehand painting with white gesso or white acrylic paint or some other light color of paint. I like to use gesso because it has that nice matte finish to it. And I used one of my new stencil designs that just came out yesterday on the 21st. This one's called Cactus Scene, and it is one that I drew with a reference photo, a photo that's very important to me. And it's when we were hiking in the Catalina Mountains across the road from my house, a ways over there. And we were hiking up, and there was this trail where there was these cactuses that were just marching along, and that's the photo that I used as reference to this. So the stencil means a lot to me. You can purchase these stencils from stencilgirlproducts.com, and you can sort by artist, and you can look up Shel C. They actually have my name down at the bottom with the number. It says Shel C. I'm pretty excited about that. But I stenciled it with a sponge dauber and white gesso, the DecoArt brand. And then what's interesting about these spray inks is then they attract to the white gesso and they start to bleed through the gesso and they become this interesting multicolored image. And that's an old technique. It's been around a long time, but it's fun. And just interesting. I thought it was interesting. I also used another Stencil Girl stencil from Stencil Club. That is where you join and you pay a monthly fee to get exclusive stencils. And I think this one was from last month, so it would have been June. It's the 4x4 by June's. But I thought it looked like a sunshine, and or a moon, and it was interesting to me to fill in the rest of this composition with it. I also did some splatters, but even the splatters, as the piece sits, the rainbowy colors from that dilution spray continue to come through and dye that gesso. And it's something that happens. It's not something that you can prevent. In fact, I've seen people try to cover up dilutions with layers and layers of different mediums trying to do exclusion or something. It just doesn't work. That just keeps coming through, and that's the interesting property of these sprays. So then I got out another product from my studio that I never use, or rarely use. These are just plain old colored pencils from Prismacolor. This was an expensive colored pencil set, and I used to color things with colored pencils a long time ago when I was into rubber stamping and things like that. And I just hardly ever use these. So, it's almost like it's new. When you get out something that you haven't used in a really, really long time, and you've kind of forgotten about it, and then you find it and you're like, "Oh, I should play with that." It's like you've got something new, but you didn't have to spend any money. So that's kind of what we're talking about today on the live stream. We were just using stuff that we haven't used for a long time, or that we haven't techniques that we haven't used for a long time, or in this case, this was even upcycled because it was a piece of cardboard from the back of a watercolor pad, and no one will ever know. It just looks like a flat panel canvas. It's got so much gesso on it. It's going to be just fine. So I am using the different color pencils to enhance what's there. So, I've got that kind of pastel-y, rainbowy situation going on, and I want to pump up the shadows and highlights. So, like in the case of the saguaro cactuses, I decide where the light's coming from, and then I use a darker green and then a lighter green and a lighter green, kind of really coloring in the shadows. From the distance of the camera, it's hard to see, but the close-ups will be coming and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. So this is a fun process. It's like coloring, and the color pencils are just going where the gesso is. So I'm just coloring on top of that white gesso to enhance certain colors and to push back other colors to make this composition make more sense, a little bit more sense. I mean, it's not supposed to be realistic. It never was realistic. This stencil design is more realistic than the other two that I created. That were drawn from my imagination. This one was actually drawn from a photo, so it's a little bit more realistic. We got the cracks and crevices of the Push Ridge Mountains behind the saguaros. It's a little bit more realistic, but not 100% realistic by any means. I'm not a realistic artist. Everything that I do has whimsy to it, and that's just who I am. So I've got some saguaro cactuses. I've got an ocotillo. There's some organ pipe cactuses back there. There's some of the lavendery purple colored prickly pears. There's a little barrel cactus there. Just, stuff. So once I was done playing with the color pencils, then I got out something else. This is a needle tipped applicator, and it has a little thing that goes down inside the needle so it never clogs. It's a really cool kind of thing, a fine tip bottle, and it has high flow acrylic paint in it. That's a golden product. It's kind of like an acrylic ink. It's a very thin but very very highly pigmented. The pigment load's really high on this a type of fluid acrylic, and I am using it to do dots and lines and add some spikes and thorns to my cactuses. Everything here, even just a tree that looks like a tree, still has thorns on it in Arizona. Everything does. The cactuses, the trees, the bushes, everything has thorns. Everything will poke you and scratch you if you're not careful. So you just have to always be careful. So little dots, little lines, and just, mark making to make this more fun and more interesting. Um, Always something I like to do. So this process, through the whole thing, front to back, took less time than I expected. And so I ended up making another one, a different one, with a different cactus stencil. So stay tuned for that. We'll be coming up to the close-ups here really soon. I'm just finishing up my white dots, making maybe making some constellations in the sky. Decided this was the desert in the nighttime because it had the black background, and you get a lot of contrast with that. It's fun, different. So yeah, here come your close-ups. and you can see how the colored pencil made a difference, particularly on the saguaros. You can really see where the shadows should be. I used different pencils to bring those, to make them look more dimensional. You can also see the little white dots, which was hard to see in the video. So for the next project, I got out a 6x6 flat canvas. I have a ton of these little canvases around because I was doing that 100-day project, so I bought a big package of cactuses, and then did I just say cactuses? Canvases. I've got cactuses on the brain. Canvases. I'm losing my mind. Um, so I have a ton of them left, so I'm using something that I have. I haven't bought any more of them. I'm not planning on buying any anytime soon because I have a lot. And I had this Deco Art. Uh, it says Deco Art texture paste from the Americana line on it. Wasn't really sure even what it is, but I went ahead and put my 6x6 cactus stencil on there and pushed that medium through with a silicone brush, a 1-inch silicone brush, and then I gave that thing a good dry. Of course, I don't force you here in the speed up versions to watch me dry things. I did a lot of drawing on the live stream today. I did a lot of drawing, so I'm sure that was boring for the people watching the live stream. But we chat and we talk and whatever. It's still fun. You can always go watch the replay, the recorded replay of live streams over on our Art Joy of Sharing live stream channel if you want to. So I'm again using those Dilutions ink sprays, and I'm spraying them, and I have some water, and I'm spraying a little water and letting it drip down and start to make that raised area of the texture medium. First time I've ever used that particular brand. Just had it. So I gave that a good dry. So yeah, lots of drying. But it looks interesting. It looks different. But the one thing that did happen that was annoying me is that I had put some Art Guard, some barrier cream on my hands before I ever started. And around the edge of the canvas where my fingers had touched, the it resisted because it got some of that, either the oil from my hands or the lotion from my hands, and it resisted in those spots. So I ended up with these weird white spots around the edges, which I did fix. But the next thing I did was to use some of this gold medium. It's called Iridescence from Ann Butler, and it is a VOC water-based, non-toxic medium. And as I was talking about the sprays and how they go through everything, they seep through everything, they blend into everything, no matter what you put over the top. So I thought it would be interesting to make this a little bit shiny and iridescent and gold looking by putting the stencil back down and putting some of that over the top, because I knew that those sprays were just going to keep right on coming through. It wasn't going to cover anything up. It was just going to come through anyway. So I did that, and in the close-ups at the end, you will see the iridescence. Hard to see on video, always is, but the pictures turned out with a little bit of it on there. So the next thing I did, remember I was talking about those fingerprints that were bugging me on the edges of the canvas. I decided to get back out my white gesso and to just go around the edges of the image and blend in and lighten up so that the cactuses were standing out more. Of course, I can't make it white because the dilution spray is just going to come through. I'm not even trying to make it white. I'm just trying to even out where those fingerprints were, because I thought they looked sloppy. I thought it looked unfinished. And so I'm just using a small flat brush and that same white gesso from DecoArt to just add a little bit of white and smooth everything out. And I thought it started to look a lot better because, particularly on the left-hand side, those fingerprints were just really bugging me. So, of course, I have to give that a good dry. I'm sure I'll be trying it soon. Maybe. Oh, maybe I just cut that part out. So then I thought, well, it would be fun to use a watercolor brush with these sprays. So I have a palette there next to me, which is a palette paper. It's like a coated paper. And I just spritz the ink out onto the palette paper and then pick it up with a watercolor brush and just start to paint in and intensify some areas of color. I hope you guys have been enjoying this video, and that there's going to be several more videos with my cactus stencils. So if you hate cactuses, you're in big trouble on my channel for the next couple days. But I want to show you guys all the things you can do with these fun cactus stencils that you can purchase. And this is just one thing. There's lots more things coming. So yeah, I'm just filling in. But if you do like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. You can leave me a comment or question below if you have any questions about what I did today with my stuff that I had around the studio that I haven't used very often. If you've got any questions about that, feel free to leave one below. You can subscribe. So close to 20,000 subscribers, so close. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Just click on that little subscribe button down in the corner, and you'll become part of our community here on the PaperOcotilloStudio, and I always appreciate that. And of course, you can share this if you know somebody who wants to see it. So I think I'm getting pretty much done with this one. I'm touching up a little. As I was spraying onto the palette with the spray, it kind of splattered a little bit onto the project, which I didn't intend. So I touched that up a little bit with more white gesso, which it still shows through, but not that big a deal. And here are both the projects I did today. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.